like to share with you. There's a, let me get this right. John 20:19 says, when therefore it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and when the doors were shut, where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood in the midst and said to them, peace be with you. And when he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. And the disciples were glad because they saw their friend. And Jesus said to them again, peace be with you. The Spirit is in me as it is in you. And he breathed and said to them, receive the Holy Spirit. That breath is inspiration. In fact, on your little sheets, if you pick one up, make sure, I think I put it there. Then I put the metaphysical meaning of inspiration there, which is the breath, right? It is the breath of everything. Your breath, the breath of divine. Receiving that Holy Spirit is recognizing that connectedness in the breath. Nothing moves without the breath, right? There is a nothing without that exchange. And I like this little reading because, well, you guys all know I practice mediumship, and in that we recognize that nobody's really gone, right? And that you can have communication with those that have passed, your friends, your loved ones. And here is Jesus saying, you know what? I didn't go anywhere, guys. That breath of life still connects us, and we're still together. And when he shows his hands and his side, he's saying, all my memories are still with me. All that stuff I did in the physical is still here. I haven't lost my memories. I haven't lost my connection with you. I am still me, but I'm also so much more, just as you are. And it takes time to integrate that meaning. So our memories and such, yes, they're still present in after we have lost our physicalness, but it takes some time, right, to integrate all of our experience back into that essence of one, back into the spirit and that movement. So I love this illustration because there's a tangible thing that says, Jesus says, I'm still me, but I'm integrating into more. And you are that as well. And the image of breathing and receiving the Spirit and recognizing that is the connecting point. That is the connecting point. And the best and most beautiful things in the world can't be seen or touched. We can't see or touch the breath. And yet we know that in that presence and in that recognition of the breath, and even in settling and paying attention to our own breath, we gain that inspiration. We are closer to it. We're closer to both our physicalness and realizing what our bodies are telling us, and we're closer to that everything that we are all a part of. And we feel that, and that's a quote on your page from Helen Keller, we feel that in our heart, right? It's all a feeling. And that feeling is to recognize that we don't need to fear. So the disciples were hiding for their lives, right? Because as we talked about a few weeks ago, Jesus was a little bit of a dissident, right? Political churner, and nobody wanted to follow right then because the politics would catch up to them. So they're in fear, and Jesus is saying, you know what, be at peace, and here's the breath, and remember who you are. So if we can remember that anytime that we feel in fear or in a difficult situation or just anxiety, like I told you my son earlier, before he left that morning for the bus. This is a kid that doesn't get out of bed, and he was up at 6:15 and telling me to get dressed. It was time for him to go. So I knew he was super anxious, right? So we're in the car and I'm like, are you anxious or are you excited? You know, because you could tell his jaw and he wasn't breathing. And he's like, yes. So I'm like, you have to remember to breathe, because remember, when you pay attention to your breath, your body knows it's okay to be safe and to recognize and enjoy, and it's not just 14-year-old anxious people going on a field trip. They need to be reminded of that, to breathe, to listen to your own breath. I mean, anytime we start a meditation here, it's recognize your breath first. There's your connecting point, and to feel that gratitude through your heart. So I would like to invite you, where are the things that you recognize your inspiration? Where do you recognize divinity in your life? When are those times when that breath has allowed you to refocus and to be and to know? There's on the back of the page for you is your practice for the week, and it's to know you are the inspiration. The spirit lives, so to say, lives, not live, in you, and the breath is the source of your life. Breath connects to inspiration always. So what is that inspiration for you? It's the same idea of the pictures, right? What are you recognizing in divinity through your life? Would anybody like to I know we just shared some other things, but do you have any specific things you'd like to talk about or share as things that you recognize as being inspiration, or moments when you've used that breath?
So we've been taking a class or a book study on Monday nights, which has been interesting to, and I think part of it was getting in touch with your inspiration, your God self, and how you got it, and how how you let it be in your life. And I had a thought when I was sitting there. I don't know where it went. I think for me, at this point in my life, I do take it moment by moment. You have this routine, and we all have some issues, and then I have family members around me now, and they have their issues, and you get so involved with the issues. It's like, when do you surrender or ask or whatever it is that we want to help get you through it? And a lot of times it's just taking that breath and release it all, and let that inspiration come in. What is your next step, and what do you do next? Because clearly it's too hard to even think about going a whole lot forward. So right now, I mean, technically we're supposed to be here in the now. So right now, I think I'm learning to be right here in the now and deal with each moment as it comes, and then as any of your other things that come at you or towards you or part of you, and if it's part of something that you don't have an answer for or a clear answer, again, it's like taking the breath, let the concerning thoughts go, and then let some guidance come in and direct you. And I just for real quick there, I have my daughter. One of my daughters is 100% fundamentalist, 100% very clear Bible verse, and you read it every day. And she'll write 2 to 3, 4 paragraphs a day on Facebook based on her nightly inspirations that she thinks of or whatever. And so she called me and she asked me, she didn't call me, she texted me. I hate texts sometimes because you can misinterpret or you can read a whole lot more into a few words and you take on the idea of like, this is being said this way. Like you can put an attitude into the words. You're not there, you don't know what their attitude is, but you assume you can take in an attitude. And if once you perceive that attitude in your reading of the words, then your response creates another form. And then it turns out that you totally misunderstood the whole few words in the first place. And then you have to clear everything. So, especially if you're mentioning and talking about somebody else in this conversation. So again, that's something that happened, and it involved her, myself, and her son. And so then in the moment when she asked me this question, which involved her son, I go, well, yeah, that's true. And then, so then I respond to the son via text because he couldn't answer his phone at the time. And I gave him my thoughts of what I heard his mom say. And then his mom called, and then we started talking, and she was cut off on the phone in a midway. You know, all of a sudden you have a conversation, and she's off, and I go, oh my God, she hung up on me, or there's a disconnect, and so then your mind goes on again, and then you talk to the son, and then you talk to the daughter, and then you eventually start talking again, and they go, well, anyways, in all this craziness, you can actually say there was like concern and I don't, you can call it fear, but you want peace and you want people to be okay. And I just recognize that in my moment of not totally surrendering it and wait for clarity to come in there, my response created stuff. And so then I had to clear it up between the two of them and just say, oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I didn't hear everything. Yes, something happened with your mom's phone and she was cut off, and I didn't wait to see if she'd call me back. But anyways, it creates a scenario of craziness. So this is an example of what we do and what we do and what we don't want to do. It's like we want to be able to maybe take more time when you're communicating with someone and see, and maybe ask the right questions instead of coming with the answer when you don't know what the answer is. Sometimes it's just asking more questions. Maybe it's a little bit safer place, saying, where are you coming from? What are you thinking? Just like she observed her son, she asked him a question, and so she got some clarity other than saying, don't be grouchy, don't be this, don't be that. Be this, be that. And instead she asked the right question. So that takes surrender and more internalness and more wait, be patient. Some clarity can come and maybe avoid some confusion in our already chaotic world that we live in. If we just take a little bit of time just to stay silent and wait for the clarity to come before you respond. Amen.
Amen. So take some time this week and to remember that anytime. The breath when you recognize something wonderful, and the breath when you need to recenter. It can be used for both. used for both. Sometimes I think we say the just breathe and we recognize that spirit and having to connect only when we think we're out of control, right? And yet that just breathe is for all the times. Yes, do you want to come up?
Okay. I am a yoga teacher. I practiced yoga for 30 years and I have taught for 20 years. And we talk a lot about the breath here. And I think, like I said, we don't always breathe correctly. So I just wanted, like I said, I don't want to be bossy about this, but just try this and see what you think. So if you look at a baby, when a baby is born, they breathe belly, ribs, collarbone. They fill their whole body with breath from bottom to top. Somewhere along the line, we lose that. So most of us breathe right here into the chest. And when you do that, it actually can create more anxiety because you're not breathing fully. Okay, so you're actually activating your fight and flight syndrome when you chest breathe. So maybe just practice this. It's easiest if you practice at night when you're laying down. Think about this. Put your hands on your belly and as you inhale, you want to fill your belly with breath, draw it up to the ribs, draw it to the collarbone, and then release the breath out. And also, if you try to breathe through the nose rather than the mouth, when you breathe through the nose, it calms your mind, it lowers the blood pressure, it slows the heart rate. Okay, so breathing practices can be very powerful though. So if you find that it creates anxiety, then don't do that. But just think about it at night. Just breathe in and out.